The LRT almost did not get built, no? Because we had a financial crisis back then. We had hyperinflation as a result of capital flight. These were the twilight years of the Marcos dictatorship.
Hello mga ka-senior. Today we are here at the southern terminus of LRT, the Dr. Santos station, but we will not be exploring this area since we have already pictured that in a previous vlog. Today we are going to the central station where we will be joining Renacimiento Manila and LRT Management Corporation on a heritage tour of LRT North. We'll be visiting historic stations, heritage places around those areas, and we will know more about the history of LRT. So join me as we join LRT North Heritage Tour. Let's go. Starting from Dr. A. Santos Station, and we're going to the Central Terminal. Going up.
Central Terminal.
Central Terminal. Central Terminal, dito na tayo, dito natin inilit ang mga taga-Renacimiento. Central Terminal, hanapin na natin yung mga kasama natin.
The North route of the LRT tour. So this is actually the second version of the LRT tour. We have the Central, that was the first version of the LRT tour, which includes visiting landmarks near Central Terminal, Lito Cruz, United Nations, and Caviedo. So it involves exploring the heart of the LRT stations. But for this morning, we will be visiting the northern half of the LRT. From this station, we'll proceed to Tayuman to explore two landmarks in that area related to the history of Tayuman at a time when Tayuman was the edge of the city of Manila. No? And then we'll proceed north to Monumento to visit an important icon of the city of Caloocan. And then from there, we'll return south to Caviedo and downtown Manila to end our discussion or our tour for the morning in an important educational institution whose courses are related to several forms of mass transit. So those are our itinerary, the itinerary for this morning. That's unlimited for today. Tomorrow, it's zero balance. So you could refill it in the stations. No? But for example, paano yan? Meron na akong big card. I already have one. Well, you could give it to someone who does not have a big card because it's one of the things that the LRMC, the Light Rail Management Corporation, and the other operations of the railway systems are trying to promote. The big cards, no? Because they help shorten lines, no? They help you skip the morning lines. Because if you go to an MRT station, notice that the line is actually in the cashiers, no, in the registration booth. If you have a BIP card, it helps you go directly to the turnstile and onto the platform. So they're really trying to promote it. Like for example, there's a tarp there. So, promoting the BIP card. Alright, so with that, we start our discussion about the LRT. Alright, so I'm Diego Gabriel Torres. Ako si Diego mula sa Renacimiento, Manila, President and co-founder of Renacimiento, Manila. And I'll be your guide for this morning. I'll be assisted by Alex Bixmo Avila. No? You may have known him from such games as Grand Theft Auto, San Andreas. So, he's another guy. No? He'll discuss other important sites along the route. Will be assisted by members of the Renacimiento Manila team. So, so mass transit refers to a mode of transportation designed to move large numbers of people. That was initially the first definition. But as technology progressed, transportation improved, we now have additional criteria to it. So moving large numbers of people as fast as possible, and as convenient as possible, and connected with other forms of mass transit. So currently, the Philippines is still in your 19th century. Early 20th century kind of mass transit experience. But we do have various mass transit. An example, jeepneys are mode of mass transit, buses. No? Then again, there's the criteria efficiency. So that's another thing altogether. Then we have the trains, light rail transit, the MRT, the LRT2, and the PNR, and the incoming NSCR and subway. So those are all examples of mass transit. We also have a waterborne mass transit system in Metro Manila, the Pasig River. Since we've built mass transit, we'll be focusing on one form and one specific line of mass transit, railway specifically, the light rail transit line 1. So that's the official name of LRT. They're particular with that LRT-1, no? Not just LRT, because there's another LRT2. Since we've initially discussed light, this term by heavy, because there's light rail, there has to be heavy. When we say light rail transit, this refers to a mode of transportation, rail-based transportation, which utilizes the cars, no, vehicles associated with light rail vehicles like trams, streetcars, but uses infrastructure mostly associated with heavy rail or exclusive railways, like elevated railways or subways, for example. Those are forms of heavy rails. If you look at the vehicles of the LRT, they're actually divided into several LRVs or light rail vehicles. You couple them together to form 3 or 4 cars, which could seat 1,000 people. But in itself, you could actually operate them. Many of them could be operated standing alone, no? Like the trams of old days before the Second World War. But it has, in the case of the LRT, you do have infrastructure like this. Exclusive station, no? It has its own viaduct where the train moves, does not share it with other sorts of vehicle. There is another version of railway in the city. That's not light rail. You have heavy rail, which is LRT2. So who uses LRT2 here? Notice how the train there is just one big vehicle from one point to point. No? These are actually designed, heavy rails are designed for big numbers of mass of people and usually for intercity railways. For example, Manila to the provinces, the NSCR, the one they're building between Manila, Clark, and Manila to Calamba, would feature trains like this, heavy railways. Now, why is it called Light Rail 2? if it's a heavy rail? It's because of the operator. The operator is the Light Rail Transit Authority, the former operator of LRT1. So they don't want to let go of that. MRT, when you say metro, that's also usually a heavy rail. But the vehicles, if you look at it, they're actually more of light rail vehicles. Again, so why is it MRT? It's because of the operator, Metro Pacific. So Metro, that's the operator, so MRT.
Fernando po. FPJ.
FPJ, formerly
Roosevelt.
Roosevelt. No? And the southernmost,
Dr. Santos.
Dr. Santos. Parang may magbabaklaran pa. Nostalgic. Until 2 weeks ago, no, baklaran, you'd be right. Now, it's Dr. Santos, the part of the Cavite Extension. May mga nagsasabi, paano naging Cavite Extension yun? Kapakanyake lang. It's phase 1. Phase 1 of the Cavite Extension. So, in the future, the end of that line will be Nyog in Bacoor. Then from there, that's Cavite already. Huh? So they'll add 3 more stations. Eventually, one of the major problems in construction is, of course, right of way. Always the problem. It's actually the reason why we have the design of the LRT like this. So having said that, let's now have just a brief discussion with regards to the LRT, history of the LRT. Sino ba yung nakaabot ng ganito itsura ng LRT? The page, the
Estudyante
page,
pa ako.
the orange.
Wala pa.
Beautiful insights. Because we take for granted the current LRT designs, or maybe you've ridden the first generation train sets, the old trains that are already air conditioned, but it wasn't like that before. And there was a time there was no LRT. Okay? So how did it start? In the 1940s, you have the Second World War, decimated and destroyed the mass transit of the city. While the railways were rebuilt, because the Americans needed the railways. You could say the Americans destroyed the railways, but they rebuilt them as well because they needed them. The railways were more of transportation outside the city. Inside the city, the trams were destroyed. No? What replaced them? The jeepneys. Do you remember the size of jeepneys before? They're small. They're usually 4 or 6 to 8 packs. That's it. That was good when the city was just concentrated in the city of Manila. By the 1970s, the city had grown outside of Manila itself. You had the suburbs in Quezon City, Caloocan, Pasay, Parañaque. Those were now developing centers, which meant people were now working at the heart of the city, moving in and out, shopping, doing their business, and riding inefficient vehicles. The jeepneys, for all our love for the jeepneys, are inefficient modes of transportation. You can move 20 people, no? And not that convenient as well. And you have buses, yes, but the buses were not that big as well during the 1960s, 1970s, 50s, no? So there was a need to maximize the usage of railways. In the 1970s, the government tapped the Japanese in order to come up with a study with regards to the lines. Where can we place railways? No? Using railways once again. Actually, the initial attempt was to recreate the trams, for example, the streetcars. No? So this was something that the Japanese came up. This was the initial proposal for the railway lines. So you have one in Rojas. This is the Taft Avenue. This is one to, what you call this? Quezon, España, EDSA. So that will be MRT. And there are other lines going in and out of the city. Okay? And if you look at here, this is one of the lines, northwards, which goes past Monumento, no, to north, near Valenzuela and Caloocan. So those are some of the proposals. Eventually, so this was the study, they decided to see what was the most executable, what would we do first. They chose the one that went to the heart of the city and connected the city of Manila, the business center in Binondo, Quiapo, Santa Cruz, that was downtown Manila before, with the suburbs and industrial areas in the north, because Caloocan was an industrial area, and residential and commercial areas in the south, near the airport. The initial design actually also included a connection to the airport itself at a time when it was still easy and doable. when it was easy to put a railway there because there were many buildings around the airport at that time. So those were some of the proposals. Eventually, the plan met the reality, and of course, no plan survives contact with the enemy. And there were many considerations. First, what kind of railway are we talking about? No? The initial idea was an at-grade railway. When you say at-grade, on the surface, no? So it will be like the trams of old. The problem with that was Manila had aging infrastructure, which meant a lousy sewage work, no flooding. If you had an at-grade train, it will stop when you have rains or flooding. So if you're going to push with an at-grade system, you needed to also upgrade the sewage lines, pumps, everything. That will be two projects at the same time. So for them, too expensive. One proposal was to actually have a subterranean feature or a subway type. This was one proposal or design of a Japanese of a station near the airport, underground station near the airport. So that would have been good. You put the station underneath, but it was too expensive, you know, because you'd be digging underneath. You still be taking right of way because if you own certain land, you own it all the way down. You know? So you can't just bore underneath and not pay people. So that was consideration. Too expensive. So they decided to settle an elevated design. And in order to skim on right-of-way issues, they decided to build it on two major roads that run to the heart of the city. Avenida Rizal, or Rizal Avenue, which went all the way north, and Taft Avenue, which went all the way south to Baclaran. So covered many of the areas they wanted to do. So that was their idea. Initially, the central station was supposed to be built near Intramuros, near the schools. Which would have been ideal. However, by that time they were planning this, Intramuros administration had been created, and they did not want a station there because it was going to obscure the walls of the city. So you needed to balance convenience and the history of the city. So it was moved to this spot. They could have put it in the other side of Mayhan Gardens for all we know. But they chose this side, the Arroceros portion. So these were initial designs, elevated, no? And then construction eventually would start by the 80s. The LRT almost did not get built, no? Because we had the financial crisis back then. We had the hyperinflation as a result of capital flight. These were the twilight years of the Marcos dictatorship. So foreign investment and confidence in investing in the Philippines wasn't really good because you have social upheaval, no? Rebellion in the mountains, so everything was happening at the end of that time. But the government pushed through because it was one of their major projects. Sometimes when you say Marcos regime, what were the major projects of that period?
Lang Center, Heart Center.
Lang Center, Heart Center, the CCP, the Film Center, Manila Film Center, San Juanico Bridge. One of the sometimes overlooked project was this one. This was groundbreaking when it was being built. No? So from the 1980s until 1984 and 1985, construction started with help from Belgium. So it was Belgium which gave us capital and the railways, Dano, and supplied the engineer and know-how in building and creating the trains themselves. So these are engineers, no? Belgian engineers. In the viaduct over there, that's Santa Cruz Church. So this was taken there. And then these were the first vehicles of the metro train, as it was called back then. Yes. These are the first generation LRVs or LRTA 1000 class. Back then, they did not have air conditioning. It was air. Air. No conditioning, just air. And in order to access it, you have the turnstiles. This was the station. In 1984, the first commercial run of the LRT started, the southern line. Why the south? Because that's where the depot is. Now, they have the Baclaran depot. It allowed them to operate. 1985, they opened the northern, completing the LRT-1. Back then, light rail transit. The first light rail infrastructure, light rail transit system in Southeast Asia. Because other cities had railways already. Back then, Japan had more. No? But of course, at least in Southeast Asia, this was the first light rail transit system at that time when it was open. There were they acquire more vehicles, no? And in the early 2000s, 2014, a new operator came in when the line was privatized, no? So it's now operated by the Light Rail Manila Corporation. It's a private operation, which also, when they took over, they improved the branding, you know, tried to improve the performance of the railways. Actually, they spent the first part of their operation trying to fix the trains that were the old train sets, no? Improving the signaling system, and then having the extension. Actually, if they did not push through with breaking the project into 3 parts, we won't have the extension now because the right-of-way issues are still ongoing. But what the LRMC did was they divided it into 3 parts and started construction with the portion that was resolved already. No? So part of the milestone earlier this month, no, they inaugurated the extension of the LRT. Finally moved the southern end of the LRT from Baclaran after 40 years no, to Doctor Santos.
We got all the access, fast usage.
So the meeting points. This is always our meeting points because we're Velasimiento, Manila, and the best place to meet is at the heart of the city of Manila at Central Terminal Station. So Central Terminal is named as such because it is near the center. It's not the actual center of the line, but it's generally near the center. And based on old designs, they did not know how, but they did plan to connect it to a line going to Quezon Boulevard, Lerma, Quezon Avenue, a line to Quezon City. That was one of the ideas way back, the initial stages. No? So they really wanted this to be a major hub, the heart of the city of Manila. What areas does it serve? Well, you have this immediate area. This is known as the Arroceros area. This is the street, Arroceros Street. The vehicles passing by there, they go to Quezon Bridge to Quiapo. No? So this is part of Ermita. So it serves the City Hall, no? Manila City Hall, SM Manila, Mihan Gardens, Loton, Plaza Loton is over there, the Metropolitan Theater, and of course the historic walled city of Intramuros. Although, when you're going to Intramuros, sometimes people go down here. Actually, the best station to go down, if you're going to the Manila Cathedral in Fort Santiago, is Cabiedo Station. Go down to Cabiedo, walk towards the Don Roman Santos building. There's a jeep to the port area that passes in front of the Cathedral. So, just 30 pesos, no need to hire a jack or a tuk-tuk inside Fort City. Okay? But what is the significance of the area where Central Terminal is built? Peeling back the layers of time, way back, no? This is a map of Intramuros, Manila, from the 1700s. So that's the walls of Intramuros. Notice how it's pink. When it's colored pink, that means those are permanent buildings. The construction was the bahay na bato construction. You have wood, second floor, stone, ground floor, tiled roofs. This district is the Pabian. This is where we are right now. The LRT station is somewhere here today. No? This was originally swamplands during the 15 and 1600s until the Chinese were moved here by the Spaniards and designated this area as their settlement. You needed papers if you were a Chinese merchant here. You needed papers if you were going to move out of the Pabian or travel outside the Pabian. So this was the marketplace of Manila. So imagine being here in the 1600s, you would have been able to see this area, the Church of the Pabian, which would have been seated there near the Metropolitan Theater, the numerous stalls. No? You see silk, porcelain, ironsmiths, no? And spices. You would have been able to smell spices from the different markets across Southeast Asia gathered here and sold in the city of Manila. Manila in the 1600s was at its golden age. No? That was the first economic boom of the city. The next would be the 19th century or the 1800s. And one of the features here was a rice market, an arroceros. No? So the rice market stood on this side. No? here, along this street now known as Auseos, named after the rice markets and rice merchants. But why am I not seeing it now? Looking around, aside of these houses, there's nothing here. No settlement, no church, for example. And we're Filipinos, you'd expect we'd preserve churches. Because what happened, that disappeared because in the 1700s, the British attacked Manila. When they attacked the city, they used the settlement of Bagumbayan and its buildings to bring their cannons forward to destroy the walls of Intramuros. Hence, the city fell, and for 2 years, the British held Manila. After the city was returned to the Spaniards. The Spaniards fixed the defensive perimeter of the city. They demolished all the settlements outside of Intramuros. That included the Parian, Dilao, which was the Japanese settlement, because there were Japanese living in Manila as well during the 1600s, no? And Bagumbayan, where the people who used to live in Manila before the Spaniards arrived were relocated in 1570. Bagumbayan means Nuevo Barrio or New Town. So those were all demolished. After the war, after the 1700s, it looked like this, no? No settlements, just rice fields and swamps, no? And barracks every now and then. But by the 1800s, they decided to repurpose the barren land into parks. So, you don't have buildings. The cannons of Intramuros would still fire outside to enemies attempting to attack the capital. But they're aesthetic. Gardens all over here. This was the Jardín Botánico, the botanical gardens of the Spanish period. Yeah. So I think I have a picture here. Yeah. This is how the gardens would have looked like before. When the Americans took over, they renamed the Jardín Botánico into the Mihan Gardens. This is the Mihan Gardens. There were no buildings here. This wasn't there. Thanks to Lito Atienza, that's there. That used to be park. This building did not exist. That was also a park. No? One problem with the government planning is when we see open spaces and parks, we don't say, let's preserve that for greenery. We say, we could squeeze one more building there. How most of the station would have looked like. Why isn't it like that? Why do I have to dodge the traffic at Buendia in order to go to the north and southbound? We'll discuss that later. No? But I want you to bear in mind this was how they wanted it. No? They wanted cafes, bookstores on the ground floor. No? You do have, there's Paris down there. Big Paris. Among other stuff. No? So this was the idea. So now, we'll proceed to this platform, the northbound platform. On our way north, our first stop will be Tayuman. Hospital for lepers that used to stand here, near the city hall. Remember I mentioned Dilao?
Central Station platform. Here comes the train.
That's a catenary system which they have the prongs on top of the train. That's where you get the electricity. But you could still get electrocuted if you go down there. It's actually illegal. And from here, you can see the Tower of Manila. Safety reminder. The red line, that's the extreme area where you shouldn't be, but for security and safety reason, they also painted a yellow line, so people should be behind this area. Ideally, the waiting point is there, the white one. Done. Puno yung nauna mo. Kaya gusto ko sinagsiksik ka na lahat sa nauna. Again, Tayuman, our next.
Okay.
well. Ano may debate, no? Saan mo yun? Yung North and South debate. This is the middle one. The Pasig region. Now in North, Manila. Imagine being here in the 60s and 70s with all the neon lights, no? The signage of movies in this building. There are heritage companies from the pre-war years, but most of these are post-war.
Roman Station. Baba na tayo.
Yes, Tayuman. Now, the station is named after a street, Tayuman Street, or Kaya Tayuman. That street, which runs east to west, connecting Santa Cruz to parts of Sampaloc, on this side. Tayuman, some landmarks near Tayuman, you have the Capilla de San Lazaro and the San Lazaro Hospital Complex, including the Jose Reyes Hospital. You have the Espiritu Santo Parish, the main Catholic parish in this area. And there's another landmark that's no longer here. Used to be important to this station. We'll discuss it in a bit. If the street is called Tayuman and the station is named after Tayuman, no? Where was the street's name taken from? The street's name was taken from a plant, Tayum. Tayum is a mangrove, a form of mangrove, no? Which grew in swampy land. So we say Tayuman, the place with the Tayum plant or mangrove. There are some debates that say Tayum may be the same plant as the one after which Manila is named, the Nila plant, no? There are some saying that it's the same plant. We're not too sure. Because eventually the Tayum and the Nila in this area were destroyed because of the settlements. And you know why? Mangroves make good firewood. So they got harvested for that. This is the Tayuman area in 1898. This street, Calzada de San Lazaro, that is what's today Rizal Avenue. You have Oquieta Street over here, and there's this small street here. Doesn't even have a name. That's Tayuman. This was literally the edge of Manila during the Spanish period. Beyond it were the rice fields, swamps, and hills of La Loma, no? Leading up to the, hence La Loma means the hills, no? The hills going to Quezon City, Balintawak, that area. That's Tayuman. So this is the edge of the city. And near the edge of the city, one institution that used to thrive here is related to sports, specifically one about horses, no? In the late Spanish period, the rich families in Quiapo created a pastime wherein they'll bring out their best horses and they have horse races in Calle San Sebastian. Today, Hidalgo Street. They'll race their horses from San Sebastian Church all the way to Plaza Miranda. There was no betting, just bragging rights, no, things like that. Until they realized, this is a good pastime. But we should really move this to a more exclusive area because you can't close the street always. So taking cue from that, they decided to make a new hippodrome outside of the city. Needed to be outside because you needed room. No? They had one in Santa Mesa. If you go to Santa Mesa today, there's a street, Calle Hippodromo, no? That refers to the old hippodrome there. It wasn't a building, it was just flattened land, shaped in an oval. No? So they decided to relocate again here in the door, where they established a new racetrack, San Lazaro Racetrack. If you head straight here, you can go to the San Lazaro Racetrack, no? Where the Manila Jockey Club used to be established. Is it still there? Nandun pa ba yung San Lazaro? Wala. Ano na yun nandun? SM San Lazaro. So eventually, the racetrack moved out. There is still a San Lazaro racetrack, but it's in Cavite. That's where the Manila Jockey Club is as well. No? This property was sold to SM, which then developed it into SM San Lazaro. Tayuman. Just in case you're lost, you know you're in Tayuman when you see that sign. No? Okay?
Tayuman. Santo Parish. Espiritu Santo Parish.
This was Tayuman during the 1890s. No? You have here the San Lazaro Hospital. Next to it, there's this square with a cross. That is a cemetery. During the Spanish period, when people died, they were buried in the church compound. Nililibing lang sila sa tabi ng simbahan. That changed in the 1700s, no? When Governor General Conde de Marquina, or Berenguer de Marquina, decided to move all burials in Campo Santos, or cemeteries, away from the church. Why? Due to the diseases, such smallpox, later cholera. So you needed to put the dead in their own cemeteries. So the towns of Manila, because before Manila was composed of towns, that you have City of Manila, Intramuros, and the suburbs. Each of them had their own cemetery. Binondo had the Binondo Cemetery, the La Loma Cemetery. Sampaloc had the Balik-Balik Cemetery, which is today the Holy Trinity Church, no, and school. And Santa Cruz had the Santa Cruz Cemetery, which used to stand here on this spot. No? Luckily, we have photos of it. This was a cemetery there, Santa Cruz. You have 2 rows of stone niches, alcoves, like in Sampaloc, in Paco Park. Paco Park was the cemetery of Intramuros. No? So, you have, the official name of Paco Park is Cementerio General, meaning for General Cemetery. It wasn't a big cemetery, it was a small place, no? And more photos of that. And so this was from the American period because Americans found it interesting, no? To see these kinds of cemetery. But by 1900s, with America taking over, they saw these cemeteries as outdated and as unsanitary. So they closed all of them. No? Paco Park, Balik-Balik, and Santa Cruz were closed. Only ones left operational was La Loma. Because it was expanded and improved on American sanitary principles. So eventually, after it was closed, the cemetery was cleared. And this became a mission site, no, for Divine Word fathers. No? And they established here this Espiritu Santo Parish. Why? At that time, the main parish of Santa Cruz was Santa Cruz Church, all the way in Calieto. But as this area developed, you remember the photo earlier of the racetrack? Have houses already. It's so far away. So they decided to have a parish here. The first church was built in the 1930s. But then in the 1950s, using donations, they built this present structure. This is a neo-Gothic revival structure. This is the interior of it. Pictures, paintings, and woodwork. There are 2 images there. When you enter by Maximo Vicente. It's a santero from Calle Hidalgo in Quiapo. One of the best of his time. The church also has a crypt beneath it. And that's actually how they raise funds to build the church. Leasing out the crypt for people. Pre-selling of the units. So today, we have the church. Later, it was from the Divine Word Father, it was passed to the Archdiocese of Manila, who holds it today. So you have a school now on this side. The old convent was renovated and replaced. This is the major parish this side. Now, to give you time enough, just to enter and see the church. It has a organ on the upper floor. And most of the materials, some of the items are actually imported from the United States as decorations inside it.
At sa buong sansinuko. Amen. Magsukayo. Amen.
guidance.
LRT. Meron siyang may ilang variation siya. First, you have yung Central Terminal type. That's unique. Halos walang ibang ganong station. Then you have the Caviedo station type, which has a mezzanine, but not a full mezzanine split. So the mezzanine or the concourse is just on both ends of the station. And then you have the station with 4 access points, like Buendia, Quirino Station. These are the ones built over intersections, usually. But not exclusively naman. No? And then you have something like this one, and Vito Cruz, this one, at saka Pedro Hill, we only have on one side. Usually 2 staircase on one side. So they usually build the bigger ones, the ones with access on 4 points, on big roads. Have better access. Yung EDSA, since they didn't build it on top of EDSA, 1 access on this. At siya, 2 access siya, one side. Pero wala sa ibabaw na intersection. Strange. Yung choices nila usually in terms of the design. So our next discussion will be about San Lazaro. And of course, the best place to discuss it is inside. The ruins of the old complex. No? When we enter, just want to point out, when we enter here, you see an old building from the American period. That was the administrative building during the American times, also used for mental health institution during that time, before the Mandaluyong facility was opened, the National Health Mental Hospital before, no? So this was used for that as well. Then later, we'll go inside the old hospital. Alright?
Department of Health. Ganda ng building. Oo, American Air. Oo nga eh. Ganda pala dito. The old chapel.
Hindi nasa property siya ng government, but it's funded by the government.
Ay awitin natin ang Salve Regina para sa ating pagpupoy sa mahal na ina, ang ina ng ating Panginoon Jesucristo na kayo sa pala ng cross.
Imagine Padre Damaso yun actually true. Ang Franciscans, they practice teachings of St. Francis, no? Humility, poverty, and among other things, yung pagtulong sa tao, helping one another. So their main purpose when they came to the Philippines was to establish institutions of care institutions, hospitals, AP, things like that. They were actually requested by King Philip to go to the Philippines. They weren't supposed to come here. They were going to another mission. But
King Philip asked them, could you proceed to our new possessions in Asia? Which they did. No? Now, one father training to give aid to the Spaniards and Filipinos who were sick. No? Eventually, he got enough support to create a proper hospital. The Hospital Misericordia, no? Hospital of Mercy. That hospital existed in what is now Lyceum of the Philippines. It's oldest hospital in the Philippines, still in operation. Why? That hospital later split into two. The Hospital de los Naturales, the native hospital established outside the walls in Bilao, which is now City Hall area, while the Spanish hospital stayed inside. Around the 1700s, a different religious order arrived to take charge of the hospital. It was the Saint John, Hospital de San Juan de Dios, or the Saint God. So, Hospital de San Juan de Dios was the one in Tamuros. And then outside, the Franciscans continued to operate the hospital as the Hospital de San Lazaro. So this is actually, the walls of Intramuros will be on this side. No? And this is generally near SM Manila. That's where the hospital stood for 100 years. No? The hospital was there, funded by the government, until the clearing of the areas outside the walls took place. Everything was demolished. Was that it has a facility for lepers? Are you familiar with leprosy or keto? Sabi keto, ano yung na-imagine natin? You have yung, it's a bacteria that eats the flesh, no? So you have yung usually soft flesh. Ilong, so nauubos, napupudpuds. And if you read the Bible, there was so much fear with regards to lepers, no? To the point that isa sa mga miracles of Jesus is healing the lepers, no? And that was how we also show that Jesus connected with the poor and the sick, because he also healed the lepers. So they had that hospital, and you know how the first lepers were sent to San Lazaro? It was an act of insult by the Japanese. No? The Japanese were kicking out the Christians from Japan during the 1600s. And one batch they sent to Manila, since they said, since these Christians in Manila want to have Christians, no? We're sending you these leper Christians. So Japanese lepers. And the Franciscans took that with stride. Yes, we'll take care of them. And then placed them in the Hospital de Naturales. So that eventually it became a leper hospital. But you can't put, there was still no proper cure for it. So you needed to put it away from the people. So they settled in an hacienda at the edge of the city, away from the settlement. Here. No? What is now San Lazaro Hospital. The facility that you see here, the walls there, the stone base, these were built in the 1800s with help from the city administrator, Father Huertas. No? I think there's a street name after Huertas, Felix Huertas. He was city administrator of Manila. He was instrumental in actually rediscovering the narrative of Namayan about Santa Ana. He also found, once again, the money for the construction of the waterworks, the Camiedo waterworks, and he had the allocated funds for the fixing of this facility. So this is how the area looked like during this American period. This is the entrance. You have a stone wall, but the upper portion of the outer structure was wood. Bahay na patok construction. And the courtyard. This was a courtyard. It was taken from here. This arch. Looking there. When the Americans took over, as an act of, again, insult, the Spaniards released the leper patients of the hospital, so that the Americans had to spend the first few days of their rule tracking the lepers and putting them back here in this place. But it was easy to find them, so they placed them here. The Americans took over the facility, and based on the stories that we know, this was a chapel before. Now, the back of the chapel, the altar would have been here. Today, the altar is there. There's a reason for that. There was a screen. The priest enters through the back in order to say mass, give communion. And the lepers, he doesn't have to see the lepers or come into contact with them, because it was the lepers who were inside the compound itself. No? There was something separating them. When the Americans took over, they changed, of course, the layout. But this other layout was changed much, much later. They removed most of the structures here. So why is it in ruins? Burned down in the 1960s. fire destroyed. And you could still see parts of the woodwork there, but it's off limits with burnt out structures. This is this is a photograph of the outer portion of the hospital. This is the building outside. So today, we have a chapel here dedicated to San Lazarus. You know Lazarus? Lazarus, Lazarus, no? It's one of the very it's not it's the only one, no, dedicated to San Lazarus.
Papasok po tayo sa likod ng simbahan. Pakita niyo po rin.
Paderya. So, it's under the altar. So, after na lang nila binado yung out. And as I mentioned again, the reason they have the altar there, nandiyan yung access to the priest. So, hindi siya in direct contact with the lepers. Later, then si leper, all the leper hospital here. It was moved to Palawan.
Kulyon.
Kulyon. But this will continue to function as an infectious diseases. Yet to this day, and other diseases will have yung sa TB, o hindi man dito hospital na, pero ibang mga bakuna sa mga gamot for that. This is a hindi mo ito bibigyan for water. Again, don't touch anything.
First, pilgrimage daw po ng Tiapuan. Nasa isang
Yun lang yung survivor ng chapel. That was 1967. Before his case.
The paintings that survived.
Has survived.
A human station. Next station, Yamaha Monumento. Puro Yamaha, pati Atso, Yamaha. Yamaha Monumento. Yamaha Monumento. Kada pala sa SM Grand Central ang Yamaha Station. Grabe yung branding ng Yamaha. Oh, lahat na lang may Yamaha.
Hello! Hep, hep! Okay, that's our tour for the Monumento Station and now we're going back to Cariel na po. Just kidding. So, of course, we are now at the Yamaha Monumento Station. Again, Yamaha Monumento Station. Before it was just only Monumento. Bakit po ba siya naging Yamaha? Kasi po, yan po ang apelido ni Yamaha Monumento. Ito po. The reason why there are stations that have different names already is because sometimes there are partnerships with the LRT or LRMC today, of course. For the case of Roosevelt Station, of course, some of you have witnessed that it was once the Roosevelt Station. Then, lately it became Fernando Po Jr. Station. The reason is because, one, either there was a resolution or a law has been passed that to rename a street where the LRT was traversing back then. For the Yamaha Monumento, on the other hand, Yamaha is on a partnership with LRMC and they adopted this station, specifically Monumento, because this is the most busiest station aside from EDSA, Carriedo, and Hilpuya. But back then, of course, it was known as Monumento Station. And if you've noticed, we're now outside of Manila. We're now at Caloocan. Caloocan, why? Because back then, Caloocan was once a part of the province of Tondo. Before Caloocan became a Vista, or Visita de Caloocan, it was once part of Tondo. Until in the late 1700s, in the early 1700s, Monumento, or should I say, Caloocan, from the name Look, that's the original name of Caloocan, Loocan, meaning sulok, corner. It became its own Visita, and it got separated from the province of Tondo. So it is now a different, and it's surviving as its own pueblo, as we call it, or town. Then, American period came, Monumento would become, or should I say, Caloocan would be known for its structures, especially the monument of Andres Bonifacio. But later on, we will talk about it. But where are we right now? Where is this station located? It is located at Grace Park. Technically, we are here at Grace Park East, sorry. Well, on the other side, you will go on the other concourse, that's already Grace Park West. So why is it even called Grace Park? Kapatid po siya ng Rizal Park. Pero hindi po siya related kay Santa Rosa. The reason why it is called Grace Park is because of two things. One, because of these two. There are two theories why it's called Grace Park. One, because of Michael O'Doherty, who was once the Archbishop of Manila during the American period. And the reason why this was called Grace Park, according to some sources, because they call Michael Doherty as His Grace. Your Grace. But according to the Caloocan Historical Cultural Society, or Association, sorry, it's because of this girl right here. Her name is Grace Green Roosevelt, the granddaughter of Theodore Roosevelt, the former president of the United States. So why of all her? It is believed that the father of Grace Green, which is Theodore Roosevelt Jr., always go here at this area of Caloocan to see planes flying and landing and taking off. And in honor and to make a sip-sip, as we call it, Don Toribio of Antibay, I'm sure you know the shoemaking company, filed the resolution to rename this area into Grace. Now, where did the park came from? Because this area was once an airfield. A park for airplanes. And the most notable of all who took flights here are the Philippine Aerial Taxi Company or PATCO, which later on would become the Philippine Airlines. As you can see, you could buy tickets on Matay Radio, Manila Hotel, imagine. Bayview Hotel, and of course, Grace Park Airport. Grace Park Airport actually stretches from La Loma Cemetery up to here, at EDSA, Highway 54. But there would be a challenger against PATCO. Although this is in Spanish, but these two pilots would make history in the Philippines to inaugurate the most memorable flight of all. Taking off from Iloilo up to Manila, led by the Iloilo Negros Air Express Company Inc. or INAIC. And they are run before by the Lopezes and the Aranetas. You could say na lolo ancestors of former Senator Mar Rojas. So you're aware of him. The Japanese launched an attack in Manila on December 8, 1941. And the first one to be hit was the airfield of Inaig. It became inoperable, and of course the Japanese would reuse their airfields. But by the return of the Americans on 1945, they would launch sorties, meaning bombing runs. Because the Japanese are using these airfields, and to cripple the Japanese Air Force, they would destroy the airfield and the hangars of the Japanese army. And after the war, what happened to Inaig? They tried to operate again, but unfortunately, they filed for bankruptcy because there were accidents on their airlines. But I would say, how many accidents happened? Because it's very controversial. Later on, they would become the Triati, which is where we would go later after this tour here at the Monumento Station. Fast forward, Monumento would also be known for another mall, known as the Ever Emporium. But their beginnings happened at Claro and Recto, which is of course, you all know Recto today, right? Then, Mr. Go, or the owner of Goteng and Industries, would create a new mall here at Caloocan because again, Caloocan is there's still plenty of open lands or plot of lands here. So he brought his Imperium from Manila, or should I say Recto, and built the Ever Emporium, which is right in front of Bonifacio Monument. But the most memorable and notable of all would be the Ever Grotesco. The Ever Grotesco Central or Grand Central would become the most popular mall here in Camanaba. When we say Camanaba, Caloocan, Malabon, Navotas, Valenzuela. And this is where everyone will enjoy their leisure. Of course, if they cannot go to SM North EDSA or other malls of the NRC. And it is the mall that has been integrated with the LRT station. Because back then, those who ride from using the LRT, they could go already to the cinema level, which is on level 5. Those who want to go to the shop, to the department store, could already go to the level 4. But unfortunately, it would become a victim of a huge fire. I'm sure you remember this because it was once big news that it got burned because of insurance. But again, we don't know the actual story, but that's also the beginning of the decline of the Ever Grotesco. And that's why the only remaining Grotesco today is at the Commonwealth. Right? But of course, our discussion we will not go to this historic monument. And as we go to Andres Bonifacio's Monument Circle, you would also witness the Shibuya of the Philippines, which is the Victory Monumento Crossing. So, let's go to the concourse over there and we'll now go to Andres Bonifacio Monument.
Ito yung dating Evergodesco. Kaya SM Mall na siya. So we are here at SM Grand Central. Used to be Evergodesco. Yan, dinadaanan natin. Meron pa dalawang station, Balintawak at Fernando Jr. Pero dati yung ito yung terminus. Shibuya of So, papunta tayo sa Monumento Bolivar. First time ha, first time. Nakapunta ako dito. Salamat po.
Bonifacio Monument. Give an idea, of course, there was once a competition in the 1930s to commission a monument for Andres Bonifacio, or that Andres Bonifacio. For our foreign friend here, Andres Bonifacio is the leader of the Katipunan that led the Philippine Revolution of 1896. Okay? And since we already have a monument for Rizal, and of course at the Rizal Park, Luneta, the Philippine Commission, of course, wants to have a monument as well for Gat Andres Bonifacio. And so in the 1930s, there was a competition, and the winning prize, of course, was the design of Guillermo Tolentino. And on that competition, two notable artists were actually the judges. One, Tomas Matua, the first ever registered architect in the Philippines. And another notable artist is Antonio, the son of Juan Luna. Andres San Pedro de Luna de San Pedro. And of course, by 1933, at exactly November 30, this was unveiled to the public with a major celebration from Claro M. Recto up to Avenida, which is now Rizal Avenue, and up till here. Imagine, a big parade was made with the queens of the Manila Carnival. I'm sure you're aware of that because Manila Carnival was like our pageant here in the Philippines back then. And here, by the way, is an article from the La Vanguardia where almost 30,000 people attended the festivity, the unveiling of the monument of Andres Bonifacio.
So naka-attend si Arrile na.
That I'm not sure, but Sergio Osmeña was here actually when he was still a senator. And of course, Guillermo Tolentino designed this according to some legend. He even asked the soul of Andres Bonifacio because for some we know him as a psychic, right? But there's no existing photo about what's the actual feature of Andres Bonifacio's head. And so, Guillermo Tolentino asked the help of one of the siblings of Andres Bonifacio, which is Espiridiona Bonifacio. And from the mold of the face, that's where Guillermo Tolentino got it. So now, we will look at the design of the Bonifacio monument. Of course, you have Andres Bonifacio, and as you can see, it's in a barong style clothing, right? Then, on his left, you see Emilio Jacinto. Noticeable already because of those bangs, right? And as you can see, the bolo and the revolver. Yeah. Behind him, there is the flag of the Katipunan. So now, let's move to the right. Bonifacio Monument that people don't notice at all. The Bonifacio Monument is also the first ever monument for the Lumbursa. Because behind the monument, you would see the three priests and the garrote that was used to execute them. And it is the most unique part of the Bonifacio Monument. Going here on the other side, Pahinga mo to. Okay. This also depicts the first ever Katipunero na konyo. Just kidding. This is what we call a Santugo, and the Katipunan use this for their new members. Again, this is not a konyo, ah. And going back to the front, you have continuous struggle of the Filipinos during the Revolution. And on the top, you would notice at the very top of the monument, you have Nike, the goddess of triumph. The image of victory. That's of course according to Greek legend. And here, you have a code of the Katipunan, a cipher actually. And if you've noticed, as we encircle the monument, the provinces where Governor General Ramon Blanco ordered a martial law during the Philippine Revolution. And of course, you have the cipher of the Katipunan. Rory, you decoded this. So what does it mean?
Okay, this letter or this statement is all about the urge of Andres Bonifacio to regroup all of his men, and those who don't follow his rules will be given the they will be charged to insubordination and mutiny. So as you can see here, it is weird that they don't use any of the alphabets or the common alphabets we all know, because this is their own alphabet. This is the first version of the Katipunan alphabet, which I decoded some months ago, and it is dated August 28th of 1896, just several days after the revolution sparked in all parts of Manila and other provinces in the Philippines.
the vlog.
Meron din finally, inside the monument. First time sa monument. And then, reference to the LRT. Important cultural property. One final look. We're inside, finally. Maynila. Very rare chance na makapunta tayo dito, and thank you rin na Cimiento for taking us to the very historic Bonifacio Monument or Monumento. Narotonda na ngayon at dito umigot ang lahat ng transportation from Manila and Northern Luzon. We're now back at Monumento Station, now going to Carriedo.
Before you. Ano siya eh, parang for the sake of progress. It's not the first time na na-move na yung monument. For example, yung Anda Monument outside in Tramuros, that used to be near Fort Santiago by the side of the river. But when they built Deltan Bridge, minove yung monument.
Carriedo Station.
Or later pagbaba, pwede ko nung with cars, no? And then position sa turnstile. Happy po na. From here, punta tayo sa Santa Coitis again. Big discussion of the Tranvia. Then we proceed to Fiati. Kung saan the tour will be taken over by the students ng Fiati and faculty. Do you usually prepare to Fiati? Okay.
This is Carriedo Station, the main station of downtown Manila. So the station got its name from Calle Carriedo. It's the street beneath that connects Santa Cruz Church with Quiapo Church. The station serves three areas. You have Santa Cruz Avenida, the former middle-class retail area. So diyan ka na shopping for shoes, school supplies, for example, and you watch movies in this area as well. This was the cinema lane of Manila. And then Quiapo, where you have the Quinta Market, mga Santo, and other goods which were sold around the Quiapo Market, the Quiapo Church area. And then Binondo Escolta. So that area is the financial hub of the city. It's also used shopping for Primera Clase, first class imported products. It's called that. If you want cheaper middle class or Japanese knockoff, or dito yon, nasa Avenida. There was a time when Japanese goods were seen as second-rate copies. Today, when you say cheap, made in China usually, no? Before, it was made in Japan goods, before the Second World War. No? So, pero saan nanggaling yung Carriedo itself? So the name Carriedo is a picture of the street during the 1900s. May connection to kina Bonifacio because in Carriedo Street, there were some printing shops. Dito kinuha nung katipunan yung mga typeset which they used for their newspaper, ang Kalayaan. So they took it from they bought it from print shops. So the name of Carriedo is derived from Don Francisco Carriedo. He was a Spanish merchant na nabuhay noong 1700s. No? He donated his money for the creation of a public waterworks system. The first, no? That was in the 1700s. Unfortunately, it took 100 years before his money could be found again and collected to be used for said project. Lumaki na yung value ng money, pero dinagdagan ng government to meet tax. They were able to fund the construction of the Camiedo Waterworks, or the Manila Waterworks system. How did it work? From Marikina River, there were pumps which will draw water from that area. Yun na kasi yung pinakamalinis na ilog ng Manila. You may continue yung photographs of the Pasig before, mukhang malinis, but that was the sewer of Manila. So, you drink water from there, you die. So, they took water from the mountains, or the relatively rural areas of Marikina. The pumps will bring the water to a big cistern or deposito at San Juan. It's still there, no? There's a museum down there and the Katipunan Museum is there. From there, pipes of Tubelias will bring the water by gravity and by pumps distributed to the city, and you got your water from hydrants like this, no? It helped save thousands of lives. From what? Cholera. So, because cholera was from contaminated water. So, with this water system, bumaba yung deaths from cholera, which were decreasing due to water from wells. Kung ano na, contaminated. SM. Because Schumann started here, no? May nagsasabi gusto lang palitan yung street to Henry C. Street daw. But for us, mas marami pong nabuhay kay Carriedo. Ito po yung fountain ni Carriedo. No 1883, this was ceremonially opened by the Governor General to signal the flow of running water. Nandiyan pa yung monument, but no longer in this spot. Nagtahan nito. It's now in front of Santa Cruz Church. And this is downtown Manila during the 1930s. Santa Cruz Church is here. We're currently in this area. And ano ba yung tsura ng Avenida? We mentioned earlier, no? So, the Avenida before, no? So, this is a procession or a parade of the Manila Carnival. So, this was where you have major parades, including later yung mga Miss Universe, when President Eisenhower visited the Philippines. This was where the parade went through as well. And this is the picture of the street before. This was in the 1960s. Nandito ba yung building yan at this time? Unfortunately, since the 1970s and 80s, by the 80s, the street started to decline because most industries and commercial establishments moved to Makati and Cubao. And ito yung Avenida. This area, Avenida. Yung Avenida kay Bonifacio Monument, rural. Yung Avenida dito, syudad. Once you cross Doroteo Jose, nagiging ano na siya, nagiging mga syudad na yung area na yan. Puro mga cinema yan. Okay?
Papunta tayong Plaza Goiti. Saan namin makain dito? Dating Plaza Fair.
Alright, so we're now in the plaza. Nasirahan ng gobyerno kasi ayaw na ng gobyerno gumastos para sa tao, no? So, inayos nila yung plaza, tapos binakuran nila. So, yung Plaza Lacson, named after Mayor Arsenio Lacson, the first elected mayor of Manila. But ang tawag dyan sa plaza na yun before was Plaza Goiti, o Plaza de Goiti, named after the man who conquered Raha Suliman's Manila, no? Siya yung sumakop sa Manila. Si Legazpi usually naalala natin, but it was de Goiti who fought the battles, no, for Legazpi. Ito yung tsura ng plaza before. It's a building na seemingly may kamukha pa rin since then. This one, no? This is the Don Roman Santos building. In the photo, you see the Monte de Piedad building. Later, this was sold and the Monte de Piedad moved to a building in front of the church. You could still see it there sa kanto ng plaza and Ongpin Street. No? Yung classical building na doon, a 3-story, that's the new Monte de Piedad building. This was bought by different businessmen until it was completed in the years after the war. So, it's now named Don Roman Santos after the founder of Prudential Bank. This was Prudential Bank headquarters before. Sa gilid niya, Escolta. So that's a business street which will bring you to Binondo. Mamaya may tour kami ng Binondo. Binondo Heritage Trail naman, no? Pero anong significance? What's the significance of this area to mass transit? Well, if you look at the photo, see that vehicle over there? That's a Tranvia. This was the main terminal or hub of the tram systems of Manila. This and Plaza Noton. From here, you could ride to Malabon, you could ride to the south, Baclaran area, and you could ride to Santa Ana, the Manila-Santa Ana line. No? The Tranvia was started as a horse-drawn conveyance. When it was first built, may wheels siya, it has rails, but it was pulled by 2 horses. And according to people before, once you get that horse running, it will not stop until it reaches the end of the line. Which meant, if you wanted to ride the Tranvia, you had to literally catch the Tranvia. No? So, you climb onto it, and then you jump out of the vehicle. Because it will not stop. No? It took a while for the vehicle first. You have to rein the horse, and you have the vehicle has momentum, so it will take a while to stop. The network was extended from Binondo to Malabon. To Malabon, they had a steam Tranvia. It's like a train. It's actually the first railway that we had, no? But then, in the 1900s, an American businessman steps in. His name is Charles Swift. And he buys the power plant, and he buys the Tranvia. He combines this asset to create an electrified Tranvia system. In 1905, they inaugurated the new Tranvia system. The company was named the Manila Electric Railway and Light Corporation, or Meralco. Maliwanag ang buhay. So, Meralco's main business was actually in the name, no? Manila Electric Railway and Light Corporation. So, railway was one of the emphasis of their business. Under the Meralco, the tram system network would grow across the city, augmented by autobuses. Because Meralco used to also have bus services. No? Ang daming ginagawa ng Meralco. It produced electricity to power plants and have buses and had the Tranvias. A Tranvia had a large ridership. For a city with a population of 300,000, yung annual ridership was 2 to 3 million. Meaning that many people use it. Hindi naman ibig sabihin na gano'ng karaming tao nasa Manila. Meaning on a daily basis, people were using it vigorously. What happened to the Tranvia? By the 30s, it was facing stiff competition from buses. No? And the Meralco saw it's cheaper to remove the Tranvias and just put buses anyway. No? As a means of saving money. This is a picture of Plaza Goiti. Yan. By the way, sino dito yung nakapanood kahit paano ng unang episodes ng Pulang Araw? Yan. Yung isang opening scene dito yun. That's the back of the church, the building. So, medyo weird lang yung design, pero this is that area, downtown Manila. What happened to the Tranvia was, ginamit sila ng Japanese na barricade. The Japanese used them as barricades during the Battle of Manila, and they were destroyed. No? Nasira sila, pinasabog sila ng mga Americans because they were just bad. So after the war, nawala na yung Tranvia. So you can still see na itong area na ito, at the crossroads talaga siya. So very busy area. So the spiritual successor of the Tranvia is the LRT. It's really connected. LRT siya, light rail vehicle siya. No? And Caviedo Station is yung successor nung dating hub, which is this one. There are still buses here. Ay, may mga buses pa rin. So it's still a transport hub going to Las Piñas and other areas to the south. Okay? Now, in this area, there's an institution, no? That's connected to the airport we visited earlier in Grace Park. Diba, Inaik. Inaik eventually became the Far Eastern, yung Fiati, natawagin. And when they closed shop as a school, they kept the name. They closed shop as an air transport service. They kept the name for a school which provided mechanical and practical learning. Fiati University. We're now heading there. Yun yung last leg ng ating tour where the students will show us around their campus kasi may railway-related sila na course. Alright? Questions so far? This will bring you to Quinta at Malacanang.
Piati. Entrance ng Piati. Good afternoon.
Everyone, my name is Grace, and
And I am Francel Campo, and we are students from Marketing Management, College of Business Department. And this is
Erich Toffer Macado.
And Kyla Jaren Salientes.
And we are students from Mechanical Engineering with Railway Specialization.
And we warmly welcome you all to our humble pride and second home, Fiati University.
We are delighted to be your guide today on this special heritage tour. Whether you're visiting for the first time or returning for another glimpse into our rich history, we assure you that today will be full of exciting discoveries.
So our journey will take us through centuries of tradition, culture, and unforgettable stories that shaped Fiati into becoming one of the top universities here in the Philippines. So throughout this tour, you'll see firsthand how the past comes alive at every corner. And by the end of this tour, me and my co-Fiatinians are hoping that you'll carry not only beautiful memories you have captured, but also deep appreciation of our heritage.
Pasig River na yung nasa kanan. Riverfront.
And all around you, you may notice that there are a lot of constructions and improvements going around. So these are for the welfare and the betterment of the education for the students. On your left, you can see a helicopter there that is utilized by the Aero AMP department. And on your right, lifeboats used by the College of Maritime Education. So these are for their practical activities within the
Fun fact, Fiati University is the university in the Philippines who offers engineering courses with railway specialization. So let us move forward as we proceed to our next station.
So here, follow me. Stay here.
Hi everyone, I'm Gamer MMR. I'm a railway engineering student here in Fiati, and I'm here with...
I'm Walter Angelim, a first-year student here in Fiati University, taking civil engineering with railway specialization.
And we are here to discuss about the railway program. Come, let's discuss about it. So the railway program was introduced in 2018, and it has a 4-year degree program with railway specialization in civil engineering, mechanical engineering, electronics engineering, and electrical engineering. And the newest of them all is the railway engineering.
And as you can see guys, here in our university, we have our train. This train named Marunouchi. This train is donated by our partnership, Tokyo Metro, in our university. They donated this train in February 2020. They donated this train to our university for student purposes, like for the student who are taking railway program and the student who is taking railway specialization.
And guys, I have a fun fact. Have you seen the 02151? The 02151 has its own meaning. The 02 is the series, and
Please follow the speaker.
Thank you. The 02151. The 02 is the series, and the number 1 on the middle is the car number. Here in Fiati, we have car number 1 and car number 2. And the 51 is the sets. Overall, there is a 59 sets.
And another fun fact guys, is the train and the railway, or we also call the railest, is donated separately. The railway track we have is donated by our partner also, the Light Rail Manila Corporation.
So another fun fact, Fiati is the only university that has a train inside the campus.
31st anniversary of PNR, or Philippine National Railways. Did you know that our Fiati founder, as you can see here, Don Salvador Araneta, was appointed in 1934 as a member of Board of Directors in Manila Railroad Company. presently known as Philippine National Railways. Along here is a timeline of Fiat University with regards to railway. Again, you can read it and take pictures freely as we proceed to our next station, which is the train simulator. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carmen Sampitamanan, a third year engineering student. And today, I'm going to teach you how to operate the train simulator. So first, we have the first control stick, which acts like a gear shift of a car. It has 3 modes: forward, neutral, and reverse. Then we have the second control stick, which gives power to the train. Then we have the third control stick, or also known as automatic brake. It helps the train to stop faster. Then we have the fourth control stick, which or also known as independent brake. It helps the train to stop precisely. Then we have the buttons. Buttons has different functions like opening the door, closing the door, and changing the cameras.
Good everyone, again I'm Walter Angelim, and today I'm here with... Hello ma'am, sir. I'm Ayakit G. Balonga, PhD student, and I'm tourism management. And now I'm going to room you around here in our Fiat University riverfront. The Light Rail Manila Corporation and our university has a strong partnership. And to add up guys, LRT meaning Light Rapid Transit. I'm sorry.
And Fiat University gave way to its construction, hence the name and the logo.
So everyone, please look here.
The motto, right? So it's look up, young man, look up. So when we look up, what do we see right now? We see the sky, right? So Fiat University has aeronautical origins, rather. So it emphasizes to the student that we should not only be limited by what we see here, but rather to go beyond our expectations and innovate further. Yes, they are
Piatti Far East Air Transport Incorporated.
Fiat is initially known as Fiat Aeronautics Corp. It was founded by Salvador Araneta and his wife, Doña Victoria. Its original mission was to take professional in aeronautics, engineering, and aviation, reflecting the growing demand of skilled labor in post-World War II era. Before Fiat became the university, it was once an airline flying between Iloilo, Manila, and Hong Kong Road. The Salvador decided to close the airline but adopted its name as part of the school they established in March 6, 1946 and named it Fiat Institute of Technology.
The old building was demolished to give way to LRT. So from here,
For those who haven't written in the guest book, please do so.
Pero we're very happy to have you, no? And we're always happy, to come here sa Fiat. Welcome our partners sa Fiat University. So papakalin natin yung mga taga-Fiat. As you can see, mga nag-entertain po sa atin, our staff and mga students from Fiat. And this is their way of sharing yung story ng Fiat as an institution. Maybe in the past you've heard about Fiat, no? And you will no longer know any history niya since the 60s. That was yung prime period talaga ng school. So existing pa in the school, it's very interesting. We had the opportunity to be shown around, no? Dahil maritime, architecture, and other courses within the school. Very technical school in that hands-on and practical and output nila para for lectures. So, mula doon kanina sa Central, hanggang doon sa Anino, or lack of Anino, sa monumento ni Bonifacio, no? Nakita natin iba-ibang stories that connects in this area of Manila. So I hope in this way, no, ang pinaka-goal ng program kasi namin sa BNT in partnering with the Light Rail Manila Corporation is to utilize mass transit as a way of, as a tool for tourism and heritage cultural activities. No? With the LRT, may stories ka na in itself. However, there are sites you could visit using the LRT. Imagine walking that area. No, yung from Central hanggang Monumento. Almost impossible siya. Doon. Kung 1927 siguro pwede nating lakarin yun. No? But sa 1990 it's very difficult to do so. But with the LRT, you could conduct a tour that jumps across the metropolis. And that's the benefit of mass transit. And in certain ways, for example, like in the part wherein tayo na lang talaga nandun sa car, no? We're able to tell or share stories about the surroundings. No? Yun yung idea talaga pag sa mass transit. Yung parang nakapag-tell ka ng story in the vehicle itself. Parang siyang rolling tour. Of course, malayo pa sa idea yun. But we're working on that. And the Light Rail Manila Corporation is a very active partner in that sense. No? So with that, again, we'd like to thank everyone for joining us in this LRT tour. So on behalf of Nacimiento Manila, again, Diego Gabriel Torres, and on behalf of our team, Galant, there's going to be picture. And we'd like to thank everyone. So again, magandang umaga, magandang araw, at mabuhay ang Maynila.
Hello again mga ka-senior, we're back where we started dito sa Dr. Santos Station sa pinakadulo ng LRT. We just came from Carriedo kung saan natapos ang ating tour with Renacimiento's North LRT Heritage. So we're very happy to join that tour because ang dami nating natutunan. We're able to learn about the story of how LRT started in Manila. It started in 1981 and it started operating in 1984. So maraming storya how it was funded at that time, and this being the very first elevated train system in Southeast Asia, talagang nahirapan ng then Marcos administration to push for this project, but I'm glad they did. So 40 years later, nandito na tayo sa LRT1 extension. So we started in Central Station, and then after that we went to Tayuman Station, where also we learned about the story of Tayuman, the Church of Espiritu Santo, which is now stand at the old cemetery, and also we learned about the San Lazaro Hospital, and we were able to visit the San Lazaro Chapel that had been in that particular place for hundreds of years, pero ngayon natin nalaman. After that, we traveled to Yamaha Monumento, kung saan we learned about the story of Evergrotesco and the Central Mall, and now it has been turned into an SM Mall. So at Yamaha Monumento, we walked to, of course, Monumento. It's for us, it's a dream come true because we've been wanting to go inside the Bonifacio Monument, and now we were able to do that with Renacimiento. After that, we went back to Carriedo, wherein we traveled to Plaza Goiti and learned the story about the importance of Plaza Goiti in the pre-LRT days, being the central terminal for Trambia. And after that, we proceeded to Piatti. We just learned that Piatti now have a course in railroad engineering and many other related courses. So it's been a very rewarding day for us to know more about LRT in particular, and the railroad system in the Philippines in general. So right now, pauwi na tayo. I'm very happy with the new development of the 5 new station, which is very convenient for us in the south. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much for watching this vlog. Travel while you can. Travel by train while you can. Maraming salamat sa panonood, and until our next vlog, see you soon.